Everything's all good. Cats are all accounted for.
That's good.
Yes.
Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Grope-a-trope podcast. Here with me, as always, is Cameron.
Hello.
Kane.
Hi.
Cody. Hail. Tommy.
Hey.
And me, Josh. So, it's definitely Wednesday, I think it would be at this point when you listen to it. And kind of going forward from here, we're going to probably try to get this released, I want to say, every Tuesday? We're going to try recording Mondays and get Tuesday. Yeah, we'll kind of keep playing it by ear and, try to get things a little normalized. But we'll go ahead and move into what everyone's been playing. So, Cameron, what's been going on in the gaming world?
I haven't been playing a whole lot lately beyond just a few things, obviously. Still playing that World of Warcraft a little bit. That's going to be a steady for a time. The new things, kind of more exciting things that I've been playing, I just, slightly before we started recording, dabbled into Pac-Man Championship Edition 2, which is interesting. I don't know, for those of you not familiar with Pac-Man Championship Edition, they're essentially kind of a modern spin on Pac-Man. It focuses on kind of the board will be changing throughout the game. You line up you get these huge trails of ghosts following your Pac-Man. It's very score-based. The first one especially was almost like methodical. You could almost view it like a rhythm game where you could really perfect things. You could hit things perfectly and you really knew when you screwed up. I feel like that one's kind of been lost a little bit on the second one. It's more flashy and kind of almost more visually appealing, but it doesn't feel as technically precise. Beyond Pac-Man Championship Edition, I played we had a 24-hour gaming event recently, and I played quite a bit of Gang Beast, so that was a good time as always.
Nice.
Gang Beast brings people together, that's for sure. So
Is that game out of early release or beta or whatever they're calling it now?
it might be. I feel like it officially came out, but it's one of those ones where you're never quite sure.
Yeah, that game has been poking around for, I want to say, a couple of years, and they've been really updating it. I remember seeing it, I want to say, 2 years ago, and it looks totally different than it does now. Tons of levels, new character models.
Oh yeah, and lots of detail on those levels too. It's not just a conveyor belt anymore. It's like a conveyor belt with boxes with the meat stamp on it and all sorts. Yeah, they're really doing a good job with that game.
That's great. That's awesome. And that's Double Fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a Double Fine joint.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go figure.
Cool. Yeah.
That's really been about it. I haven't been able to play a whole lot other than just kind of dabbling in some kind of, more, casual games in a sense, Pac-Man and Gang Beast, so.
Yeah, it seemed with the Pac-Man Championship Edition too, that was a lot more flashier, and just watching you play the other one, it seemed like that one was way more interesting with more features and stuff.
Yeah, the new one's more of like a trip in a sense. It has some really crazy, almost like a Luminous kind of vibe as far as visually goes. But I think this one might appeal to more people just looking for just a game to play, where the other one I feel like appeals more to maybe your old school arcade person who likes to chase high scores.
Right on. Cool. Well, Cody, what's been going on with you?
Well, I picked Grope-a-trope up and I installed it and started playing it. It's a lot of fun. I feel like I enjoyed the first game more, just on certain merits. Grope-a-trope is definitely more interesting. They took a Mario Galaxy approach to it. So instead of just going straight up, you're on a spherical planet that you can see the curvature of it, and there's all these different things. So there's 5 different star plants that you have to grow. The point of the original game was to grow the big star plant up to the ship called Mom. In this one, you have to go around the planet and build grow the star plants and collect different ship parts from Mom, while also doing little challenges like platforming challenges and stuff. The upgrades are way cooler and stuff, and they're more fun, and the challenges are really fun and interesting. There's just a little bit of a balancing issue where, and I feel like the devs kind of thought about this, because their whole idea of the game isn't necessarily it's this challenging game where you do platforming and stuff. It's it's a platformer that's also really relaxing. You can just kind of play it, and it's fun. And it's definitely fun. But yeah, when you get the maximum upgrade, you have the glider, but with it, you can upgrade so it has a jet on the back, so you just don't need to worry about anything after that point. You just can just pretty much fly infinitely and just keep going up. So the game becomes just like insanely easy after that point. And it's not too bad.
I was going to say, so it seems like they kind of give you that a little earlier in the game. So, like, for people who played the first one, like, the big deal was trying to get ahead of, like, get that gliding ability and, like, the rocket pack and stuff like that all upgraded. And it's kind of nice. It seems like they give it to you a little better, or a little sooner.
Yep. And one of the other things is that it adds a really cool feature called the Floridex, which basically, instead of, like, scanning up the meeps and the plant life in the game, you get this Floridex, so you can basically scan different plants that have functions. Like there's a springy mushroom, there's these jet flowers that rocket you up in the air, and all sorts of things like that. And it's a really cool feature, except that it falls flat when thrown up in the face of any other aspect or power up of the game. So I found myself very rarely using the Floridex unless it was for an achievement where you have to like build a mushroom like 10 mushrooms high. And apart from that, it was just a cool thing that I never used. And I feel like if the upgrades were a little more spaced out, I feel like maybe I just play the game in a way that I go and get everything before I finish the game. So maybe other people didn't experience that, but that's kind of how I felt.
Yeah.
The balancing, just you got a lot really quickly, which wasn't bad on its own, except that it completely devalued all the other stuff that you were able to use in the game. But it was still a fun game. And then on the side, I've just been playing, Guild Wars 2. I got Luke into it, and just doing that whole thing. It's my retaliation against WoW, I guess.
You wanted to say something in there, or?
Oh, I just I only played Grow Home a little bit. I didn't play it as much as I kind of thought that I would. It didn't initially grab me with like the weird physics grabbing arms stuff. I don't know why. That seems to be what most people love, but for some reason I just didn't. I think I just need to spend more time with it. But is Grow Up like the same kind of environment? Because in Grow Home you start like on a beach, I want to say, and you kind of like it's kind of like grassy, mountaintops and stuff. Does that environment change in this new game?
Yes, there are several different biomes.
Oh, really? Okay.
There's, I think, 5 or 6. And so there's a desert, there's island area, like kind of beach, there's grasslands, there's Arctic, and there's the poles, so there's Arctic on either side of the planet. There's jungle, and I think swamp. And they're all pretty interesting. They all have their own little features. And yeah, it's interesting. All of the, like, meeps, the little creatures in the game, and Grow Up for some reason, none of them are not insects. It's really weird.
That's really strange.
Everything is insects.
Huh.
Yeah.
Nice.
But, yeah.
How about you, Tommy? What's going on with your gaming?
Not a whole lot, unfortunately. Most of what I did was during the 24-hour event. Just still doing that moving thing, and one of the aforementioned sick people. But most of what I ended up playing at the 24-hour event was played a little bit of We Happy Few some more, and didn't get too far into it. Still only have about 3 or 4 hours into the game, but they definitely changed some things. They changed how you where you start. After you get through the initial tutorial segment or the initial introduction to the game, which is what they showed at E3, the rest of the game is kind of an open world exploratory gameplay. It's not going to be anything as large as Fallout or Elder Scrolls. Unfortunately, haven't been playing too much. Still doing the whole moving thing, and was one of the few people that got sick from the 24-hour event. But one of the things that I did play there was a little bit more of We Happy Few. So still only a few hours of gameplay total on that, but they have changed some things, made some improvements, updated some of the quests and everything like that, so they're not showing up on your map when you've completed them, or if there are quests available, they actually do show up. And then so one of the things that they changed was after you get past the introduction area, which is essentially what they showed at E3, you go into an open world type of game. it's not going to be as large or expansive as anything that Bethesda puts out in like the Fallout universe or the Elder Scrolls games. You're more or less confined to a city from what I've been able to tell. I've only been in the Wastrel district, which is where you start, but you're given some open areas to explore, people to interact with, and everything like that. And you start out in kind of an underground bunker, and they changed the layout a little bit. They shrunk it down some. In the initial build that I played before they updated it, there was actually an old lady who had hung herself, and your first objective was to discard her corpse so it doesn't smell up the place.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so that's out of the game, and I not really sure why they took it out. I mean, you could say it so that it doesn't offend people, but this doesn't exactly strike me as a game that's going to shy away from that kind of content. So maybe they just wanted to put it somewhere else, or they just thought it was kind of not necessary. But in your starting area, if you want to, you can kind of scrounge through, get some limited supplies, fashion a lockpick, open a locker, get some more supplies. It also is where a safe is located, which operates as your stash. And that's kind of important because one of the gameplay mechanics is that you can get what's called a second win, which is when you lose all of your health, you kind of get resurrected with a very small amount of health at the moment that you died. And if you die in that state, then you your game kind of ends, and then you have, as the game puts it, you go on holiday, and then you come back starting in the starting location, only this time you've lost some items. It's kind of randomized, the items that you lose, but from what I can tell, items in your stash aren't touched. So if you have things that you don't want to lose, definitely stash them there. Still haven't gotten out of the Wastrel area. You have something of a quest chain to start. You find a gateway to pass through in order to get you into the more prominent area of society, the non-Wastrel section of town, so to speak. And in order to do that, you need a particular item. Someone has said item, but they want honey in return. And then so you have to go harvest some honey, which means you have to craft a bee suit so you don't get stung and everything.
Some straight
like
up
that.
Zelda Link's Awakening trade quest stuff there.
Yeah, yep, exactly. And because you have to craft your bee suit, it does have a crafting system and everything like that. From what I can gather, the recipes aren't necessarily things you have to discover or find in items or anything like that. Just whenever you pick up an item that is used, it just kind of automatically unlocks the recipe. But beyond that, just checked out Radial G some, and then read out just a couple of VR games, which make it really hard to pass on not having a VR headset at the moment.
Yeah, I was watching you play Radial G at that 24-hour event, and it looked pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's getting really tempting to get a VR headset, so that's probably going to be a purchase here in the near future.
Is that a Vive game or Oculus? Or I'm not exactly sure how those coexist.
The from what I remember, Radial G and Redout both use Vive, and then I believe Radial G can use Oculus Rift. I'm not sure about Redout, but those pretty much that's what pretty much all I've been playing is just what was at the 24-hour event. Everything else has just been kind of busy moving and everything like that.
Yeah, the 24-hour events that we have over at the store definitely are good for playing a bunch of other games that have just been kind of sitting around in the backlog. It's a real good excuse to just sit down and go for it. So yeah, Kane, how about you? Typically we start with you first, but I decided to do you second to last.
My eyes lit up when you went to Cameron first. I was like, yes, the change. I don't have to start off this time. Yeah, so as third week in a row here, still putting a lot of time into Legion. That's kind of my main focus right now. Just gearing up my 110 Death Knight, experiencing kind of the pre-raid content, doing mythic dungeons, gearing up a lot there. It's pretty great stuff. Other than that, the game that I have just recently started, and by recently I mean 20 minutes before the podcast while we were waiting for Josh to log back in, is AM2R, another Metroid 2 remake. It's
Game is stellar.
yeah. I like I said, I maybe put 30 minutes into it, and just a little background. Metroid is probably one of my favorite game franchises. All of those games, I love them. I think I've beaten all of them except for Federation Force, which I don't feel like we really need to talk about right now. Maybe later.
Hold up though. You beat Other M?
No, okay, that's a lie. But I did get about halfway through it. I played enough of it to know that it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so I started AM2R. As most of you guys probably know, this is the fan-made Metroid 2 remake that's been going around. It's slightly old news at this point, but a good game is what we're talking about. So this game was apparently developed by one guy named Milton Guasti. I probably butchered that name. But he's been working on this game for, from what I understand, several years. He hasn't been private about it. He's been making it probably to Nintendo. Nintendo probably just kept a watchful eye and said, I guess we're not going to hit you with the ban hammer yet. But, of course, as soon as he released it, I want to say 2 or 3 days later, Nintendo...
No, it was 18 hours later.
Oh, wow, 18 hours. Okay, well, there you go. Nintendo...
Yeah, they were quick.
Nintendo was like, all right, I'll let you have this long enough to post it on the internet and let everyone download it, and then we're going to ban it. But yeah, they gave them a cease and desist, which basically isn't suing them, but it's saying, hey, if you continue this, we're probably going to sue you.
See, with that thing, I love the idea that Nintendo was totally fine with this on the internet, and especially the Kotaku stories and all that around it. And because, hey, it increases the Google searches on Metroid, aka Metroid Federation Force. Then when Federation Force is out, we can't have another option available, so they just completely shut it down.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm curious if this game would have got banned if it hadn't been, around the latest Metroid release. I mean, we haven't seen a Metroid game since Other M, and that was 2011, I think.
Yeah, a long time ago.
So... Yeah, I feel like Nintendo is usually pretty good about fan projects. Like, there's a lot of Nintendo fan projects out on the internet, and they usually don't get hit by these, from what I understand. I could totally be wrong, but I've definitely played some fan projects that are easily to play.
Yeah, and I suppose, like, the Pokemon game got hit. What was that one called?
Uranium.
Yeah, that did.
Yeah, Uranium.
Yeah, that one got hit too, but that's also probably the Pokemon game, or the Pokemon company, with Pokemon Go recently released, kind of the same situation, I'm sure. But did any of you guys see Sega, how they were like, oh yeah, these, Game Grumps are playing Sonic Green Hill Zone Act 2 fan remake, and Sega's like, oh, DMC coming right up. Just kidding, guys. Keep up the good work,
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
I was going to bring that up, the jab to Nintendo. I feel like our industry has a lot of jabs in it. Like, we've got some snarky people in charge of Twitter and marketing.
Well, that's weird coming from Sega, considering how in the past they've been ones that just immediately pounce on that stuff.
I think this one's as simple as what does Sega have to lose by people doing fan-made stuff.
Oh,
where
yeah.
Nintendo's properties are worth so much more. Like, that's like comparing Disney to DreamWorks in a sense. All right, it's not even close.
Although, to be fair, most of the stuff Sega pounced on was like the Let's Plays of their actual licenses. So maybe if it's fan-made, then they don't care. I don't know. I can't really figure them out.
Yeah, it's really strange, and it seems like it's just dredging up some of that old, like, Sega versus Nintendo stuff. Like, hey, we're cooler than you still, we're rad.
Right.
So.
I think it's kind of fun to collect these little digital things. Like, if you think about the past couple of years, we have PT. You could even say Flappy Bird, how that got taken down. Now we have Metroid 2 recently. Warcraft Adventures just recently also put up and taken down. Like, it's almost like this little market you can collect. You can have this hard drive full of illegal gaming goods almost.
So, from what I understand, I want to say it's Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 2D, I think is what it's called. But basically, people are taking Ocarina of Time and putting it into a Link to the Past type of sprite format. And they're not anywhere near finished. Last time I played it, you could play kind of the Deku Tree dungeon at the very beginning. But from what I understand, that's still up and hasn't been touched yet. I haven't checked on it recently, though.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting when you think about how to do the vertical mechanics, like jumping from the top of the Deku Tree through the webbing to get to the bottom. It actually worked out surprisingly well.
Nice. Cool. So, hey, Josh, what have you been playing? Oh. Thanks, Josh. Well, while my computer was forcibly updating itself, I turned on Recore for a tiny bit. And, you know, I didn't play nearly enough of it to actually know how the game is. It was like 20 minutes, but, I mean, just based off of like a minute deal there, it seemed okay. Like a kind of a wonky platformer. The jumping didn't feel super tight. There's like a dash mechanic that feels like it's like cut off too short. And yeah, you know, it just so far feels a little hooky, but you know, I'll dive into it a little more tomorrow and really give it a good go. But beyond that though, it's been a lot of Overwatch since we got internet, and it's been a good time. It's been real good.
Turns out Blizzard makes pretty good video games. I think I've said that sentence in every podcast we've recorded.
They've been pretty relevant this year, especially.
Yeah, this year, yeah, totally.
I feel like Overwatch is. I was enjoying that right when it first came out, and then I fell off of it after maybe a few weeks for the most part. And I do feel like it's resurging just a little bit for me personally. I've been having a pretty good time with it too.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm having a good time with the characters. Yeah, I feel like I kind of get into my my rut. I usually play like Soldier 76, Anna, you know, if we're on defense, Torbjorn, Avi. But you know, it's been really, really good. It turns out when you're playing with friends that are cool, it's awesome. Beyond that though, I haven't really got a chance to really play more of Deus Ex. I think I'm gonna try to get into that as well, like later down the line. But yeah. So unlike the last few podcasts we had, I think we're going to go ahead and break these up into small, tiny little bite-sized chunks. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break.
I can go tinkle.
Yeah, we can make tinkles. So, yeah. Anyways, we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
What a time to take a break.
And we're back. Cool. So we're going to go ahead and jump into some news stories. I wanted to go ahead and talk about the biggest thing on the docket here, which would be the PlayStation 4, the new consoles coming into the family of PlayStation 4 consoles. So we all knew about
the new PlayStation 4?
The newest ones, yes. We all knew about the PlayStation 4 Slim, but I suppose we just kind of touch on that a little bit. Both these consoles were announced over at New York City. PlayStation 4 Slim console, it's going to retail at $299.99. It has a 500 gig hard drive. We kind of already talked about a lot of this stuff with that console, but the big deal was the PlayStation 4 Pro, which is kind of a terrible name.
It's the worst name.
Yeah. Lame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but upscales to 4K, doesn't render native, and supports HDR, which I actually was gonna look into what is the HDR, like why is that? To me, in my mind, like a display, if you tell it to display a certain set of pixels, like a color hue for pixels, that it just does it. So I don't like Kane or Cameron or anyone. Does anyone know like the actual technical, like why a TV with HDR displays better
basically, from what I understand, HDR is just a technology in certain displays that allows brighter brights and more saturated color, basically. It's really nothing crazy. It's nothing, and from a game standpoint, it's nothing on like a particularly software rendering. I mean, it's essentially just like a filter, I guess. It's basically a setting that a TV needs to support, and same thing with a game. A game needs to support it. It doesn't really require any more processing or any more GPU power. If it does, it's very little. But it's basically just like a fancier contrast, from what I understand. I've seen them back to back, and yeah, HDR is nice. I mean, it's clearer.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of is like turning up the saturation on your monitor. You know, like the sunset is more orange, basically.
Yeah, it's tough because from what I understand, it's like seeing is believing. Like they did, all of this was announced at a PlayStation conference, right? Week ahead of TGS, and they like showed all these games that have already come out or games that are still coming out, but mostly games like Uncharted 4 and things of that nature. And from what I understand is if you were watching it through a stream or you're just watching it, it doesn't look any different. But people who were there on the ground floor in the seats in the auditorium said that on Sony's $10,000 TVs, they did look incredible. It's the question is, do any of us or will any of us have TVs of that quality for the next year or two? I don't know. I don't feel like Sony really sold me much on the Pro in almost any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I felt too. Coming away from that event, I just I'm sure that stuff looks really nice. I'm totally a graphics and like a visual snob. I love that stuff. I'll pay the money to have it. But at this point, I just I have a nice PC and a nice monitor. I don't feel like the PlayStation 4 Pro, spending $400 on a PlayStation 4 Pro and then spending $1,500 on a TV is really something I'm jiving to do right now.
I think it is interesting too how soon these are coming out. I think last podcast we laughed at the idea of it coming out this holiday, and lo and behold, it's coming out pretty darn quick this holiday. Which kind of goes back to like what we said last week. I think all this feels rushed.
Yeah.
No, man, you totally got it wrong.
You're crazy if you think it's going to come out this year.
This year. Yeah. No need to go back and listen to that other one.
We're
absolutely
podcasters
100%
where we can eat our
right.
words within 7 days.
Oh yeah, yep, that's the beauty. But at any rate, yeah. So the Pro launches with a terabyte hard drive, retails at $399.99, and comes out November 10th. So I mean, there's a little bit of time left here to start saving them pennies, I suppose. But I mean, it's so incremental. It just doesn't make any sense for me personally.
You said it upscaled to 4K. Is that video, gameplay, or both?
Yes.
Damn it.
That's yeah. So essentially,
three.
Yeah. So it upscales for gaming, upscales for video and such. Yeah. The weird thing is that it actually doesn't play the Blu-ray like 3.0 or whatever those are for the 4K. It doesn't play those natively either. It actually upscales that as well too, which is kind of strange.
So me coming in from a non PS4 owning consumer standpoint, say it's Christmas and I have money and I'm gonna just be selfish and just buy shit for myself because why not? So I go to the store, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4 Pro. Is it 4 Pro? Anyway, like, what would you all sort of recommend? Would it be viable for me to buy that, or would it be useless, essentially?
So it's kind of interesting kind of starting out because with the PlayStation 4 Pro, if you don't have a 4K display, it actually, and mind you, this actually comes from developers who are thinking about this kind of like consumer that's still, or thinking about the consumer that still has 1080p displays and all that stuff, but essentially the hardware that would be used towards upscaling it to 4K and the tiny bit it need for HDR, they actually can put that back into generating like more foliage or sharpening up the shadows, cranking the anti-aliasing, and generally just improving frame rate. So it kind of seems like if you have the means and you don't have the console yet, yeah, like PlayStation Pro does kind of make some sense at that point.
That's good to know, at least, that, like, for an upgrading purpose, you're like, I don't really know. But then if you're going in blind or going in fresh, then it has more incentive. That's kind of nice to know.
Yeah, I think for someone like you, I think it would make sense to just spend the extra $100 and get the Pro, because yeah, it's going to have more longevity. You're going to notice, better graphics, and you will eventually have an HDR 4K TV. But for someone like me and most of the people on this podcast who already have a PS4, like I just don't understand why we would upgrade, really. Without the TV, and with all of us have PCs. I mean, I realize that not everybody does, but if you have a PS4 and you're unhappy with the way the games look, you've probably already gone and looked at what a PC costs because you know that it looks better. I feel like you're not just waiting for a PlayStation 4 Pro because I can't wait for the new gen graphics. Like, the PlayStation 4 is still worse than the graphics cards in almost all of our PCs.
Yeah, that's the tough part, because we're coming from a PlayStation 4 with a game right now for about $350 is what you've been able to get it for a time. And so now you'll have the Slim for $299, and then you'll have the Pro for $399. I wonder how much, like, it's tough, because I almost say the biggest factor for the $100 difference is the hard drive size. You're going to go through 500 gigs real quick. You're going to go through a terabyte rather quick if the PS4 is going to be your main way of gaming. And so that's almost the main argument. Not so much, I'm worried about the HDR and all that stuff because of how intense Sony is trying to protect their early adopters, and they're making publishers more or less do contracts that are saying, whatever you do, this game will be fully backwards compatible, a weird term to use, but that's how they're kind of saying it, backwards compatible with the other PS4s. The frame rate won't be dramatically different. We don't want to, they're not going to essentially optimize it for a Pro, rather they're going to make it slightly better on a Pro. It's just a weird thing. I think if you're kind of a casual gamer, or you are going to mainly be jumping between systems, or you mainly play on PC, regardless if you're playing AAA stuff or Starbound, I might be pointing most people towards a Slim. Just if you're going to be sinking like 20-30 hours into your PS4 each week, then you probably should go for a Pro. But less than that, I think a Slim's going to be just fine, because I don't know if they're going to really be able to optimize it.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, overall, it just seems like they haven't really like locked in a good like audience. It just like it fills a hole for a small group of people. But yeah, generally, like with Kane, saying with like, if you want the high end graphics, go PC, and then all that, it doesn't really fulfill. It doesn't fulfill enough, I suppose. So, anyways, I do have a list. Kind of a small list of games that will be supported for the HDR and the 4K. If you guys want to hear it.
I think one thing worth mentioning before you go into that list is that they're actually patching old PS4s to support HDR. In the 4.0 firmware, they're going to add HDR support,
which is kind of interesting. Yeah, because it doesn't take hardly any processing at all for the most part. So
yep.
But yeah. Yeah, this list is courtesy of Games Radar, but yeah, the currently released games that are going to be 4K and HDR support is going to be Deus Ex: Mankind Divided, The Elder Scrolls Online, Infamous First Light, which is kind of strange that Second Son is not a part of that. So, oh well.
Yeah, so it's only First Light DLC?
Yeah, it's only First Light.
Weird.
Yeah. Strange
That's really
stuff.
Strange.
But Middle Earth, Shadow of Mordor, Paragon, and of course Uncharted 4: Thieves End. And I want to say too that The Last of Us is being worked on, but I don't think it's going to be real soon for that. But then the upcoming games that are guaranteed to have that support. I'm sorry, Cam, what were you saying?
I was going to say, the only one on that list that overly excites me is kind of Uncharted 4. All the other ones, I'm not sure. Like, you can't do a lot to Middle Earth to make me go back to that game for the graphics, maybe the gameplay, but that's interesting. Uncharted 4 is like the only one there that really jumps out. You say Deus Ex? That one, if I wasn't on PC, that one might grab me. Yeah. So maybe those two, but the other ones are like, I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah, Uncharted 4 for me was like, man, this looks great. I can't believe the PS4 is doing this. But imagine how'd it look on my PC. Like the whole time. That's like all I'm thinking.
It'd be a really good time to be a former Xbox fanboy who has just moved to PC right now. That's gonna be like the best of both worlds. You're gonna get all your crazy franchises, but they're gonna be on PC soon.
Yeah, seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And that is definitely a pretty interesting point too, because when you look at like that segment of the list so far, I mean, the only two games that you absolutely have to play on PS4 is Uncharted 4 and Infamous First Light. So yeah, like not a whole lot of incentive to play it on the PS4 so far. But anyways, the games coming up for like the holiday and then some are going to be like Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, Days Gone, Dishonored 2, Farpoint, Final Fantasy 15, For Honor, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Killing Floor 2. So, and I think there's a couple more. Yeah, a bunch of other ones: Mass Effect, Resident Evil, Tomb Raider, all that stuff. So it seems like a lot of people are getting on board with it for sure.
So in regards to a couple of those games, they were shown at the PlayStation event, and two of them kind of are things I want to quickly mention, especially in regards to like performance and how they look. Days Gone, I know we were watching a stream and it wasn't the full 4K HDR and stuff, and sometimes streams lag when the product itself actually isn't lagging at the conference. I don't think I've seen a moment in Days Gone where they have thrown that Molotov into the sea of like 100, 200 zombies and it not lag. Like that one seems like that game seems like they're trying to be maybe a little bit too ambitious, or maybe it's just not quite there yet. But the physics are like a big reason to be excited about that game, and it's always looking laggy to me. The other one would be Mass Effect Andromeda. I didn't think that game showed that well. I thought especially. I mean, it's pre-alpha, which is scary considering it's supposed to come out in February. But I thought the character models especially looked like we were just talking about Middle Earth and how that game, kind of looks older. It was like those level character models. I was not that impressed with Andromeda.
So is the team that makes Mass Effect the same team that makes Dragon Age? Is because they made Dragon Age Inquisition like in 2014. That was a launch title, I think, right?
Yeah, it came out. Yep, that was a big game. 2014.
Well, yeah, 2014.
Okay. Or was that?
Well, because the consoles came out in 2013.
Yeah, it was damn near a launch title.
But I'm curious how long Mass Effect has been in development. Like, was that team solely focused on Dragon Age Inquisition and then they moved to Mass Effect? Has this Mass Effect only been cooking for like 2 years, or?
No, I'm not.
I would imagine they have different teams. BioWare has a couple of different teams for sure. I don't know if it was entirely the same team. We'd have to look into that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't look that far along. I expect that game to get delayed to like next fall. I won't be surprised at all.
Yeah. That's kind of my point, is I feel like that a delay is inevitable. I feel like if you think that game is going to hit its date, I think. But then again, we said that about the PS4 Pro, so who knows? But
one thing that we can be
it seems like it could use
guaranteed
a delay. That's kind of my
on delays though is The Last Guardian. That game will never ever come out. It seriously was going to come out October 25th. It is now pushed to December 6th.
Doesn't that one feel like a punch in the gut?
Yeah, right. I mean,
like,
honestly, I don't really care.
Yeah, it's no big surprise really, because The Last Guardian, it's been pushed so many times in the past that like I'm totally and completely numb to another delay for this game. And to be honest, like I'm not even really that excited to play it anymore. It really, for me, is just closing the loop. Like when that game comes out, I will play it because I have been waiting for so long. And that's it. If it's a great game on top of that, fantastic. But yeah, it's just one of those things where you just have to see it through.
It's reached Half-Life status. Like,
I'm pretty much at the point where the game will be out when I see it on the shelf, and before that, I'm just not concerning myself with anything.
That's what I kind of meant by a punch in the gut with this game, is that it's like with Final Fantasy, that one felt rough because probably a technical point of view, or the Mercy Black Friday and all that. None of that really factors in with me with Last Guardian. To me, it's just like another sign that this game is probably gonna be just a mess. Like I'll be so happy if it comes out into 7 or an 8 out of 10 type of game. That will that will exceed my expectations tremendously. But now it's like this delay again. It's starting to get really sad. Like, please don't be a Duke Nukem Forever. You know, it's like just hold. If this game comes out and it's anywhere near like a Game of the Year contender, then that will be incredible. Like one of the biggest stories in gaming this year, and it's been a pretty big year. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm optimistic and I'm hopeful. But man,
you're not holding your breath.
No, like how can you? Like
yeah. Has it had the same director throughout most of its development cycle? Because I know that with like Duke Nukem Forever and Homefront: The Revolution, I think is the second one. Just when you change staff or change developers and they try and fix some holes and then push out a product, you get less than ideal result and everything like that. Has The Last Guardian at least had the same team throughout most of its cycle?
I thought that Fumito has been the director guy the whole time. He's the Eco and Shadow guy, right?
Yes, yeah, Ueda, I think is his last name.
So at least
I think he started the development on that game, and I think that when the game kind of like got pseudo canceled, I think that he left like because of some who knows Hideo Kojima type deal, but he came back to finish it up.
So at least there won't be like creative conflicting differences. So I'm hopeful on that front, but at the same time, I'm just kind of sitting here like everybody else, just waiting for it to come out.
Yeah, it just seems like I don't know. It like in the quote from the developer, the delay was a difficult decision, particularly with this game, but we've encountered more bugs than anticipated while in the final stages of development. So it's like what Cameron was saying there. It's pretty damning. It seems like they are just scrapped for time and just trying to piece together something that they've been trying to develop and put out for the last 70 years, it feels
and
like.
Now we'll wait and see with whenever it does eventually come out if they push out review copies or not.
Yeah, no kidding. And this one's interesting too, because to me it's like how, and I hate that I think of games this way to a degree, but that's just the way things are. How is this a $60 awesome experience?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's one thing for this game to come out and just it's art and it's aesthetic and the vibe and stuff. If they're selling it at like a recore price maximum, even like $30, even $20, even for like $60, like now we're talking like Witcher 3 level. That's what it's just, how do they do it with this game and what we know about this game? Like, how do you pull off a $60 experience with this?
Yeah, and maybe when they first started developing this game, like that type of gameplay, like that level was kind of the standard or the norm, but it seems like the industry has totally moved on without them. So yeah, we'll see. I'm not really gonna hold my breath on the review, or how well that's gonna do, but
I find myself wondering, Days Gone, that didn't get pushed at all recently, did it? Like, that hasn't been in the...
No, it just got recently announced.
Okay. Because I just see Last Guardian announced to be coming out October 25th at E3. It gets pushed back. Final Fantasy 15 gets announced. It gets pushed back. Death Stranding, who knows when that's coming out. God of War 4 is probably still some ways off. It just seems like a lot of stuff that Sony showed at E3 this year, they really just may have gotten a little bit ahead of themselves.
It kind of seems like they do that year over year, though. I guess like in recent history, I would say like The Order 1886 was a pushback. I can't think of any off the top of my head at the moment, but yeah, we'll just have to kind of see how they do with this game, and hopefully they stick with the December 6th date, because they can't really push it more.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if they pressured the team into setting a date for E3 to really wow the audience, when the team was just like, well, we're not sure if we can hit that, and Sony was like, yeah, you'll hit it, because you need to.
To be fair, though, if they would have shown Last Guardian again without a release date, it would have been like, come on, like they needed it.
I would have preferred like coming 2017 though, honestly, than pushing it back a couple times.
Yeah, they've dug their grave. I mean, really, this is their fault. It's hard to pity them too much. This has been such a long saga.
Yeah.
Quick question. Speaking of both Last Guardian and Final Fantasy 15, if you can pick one to be a dumpster fire and one to be the game of the year, which is the dumpster fire and which one's the game of the year?
Oh, dude, totally. Last Guardian dumpster fire. I would burn that game. I just am so ready to have a really awesome, like, super kick-ass Final Fantasy game to come out again.
Right? They're kind of similar in a lot of ways. They're both just these storied developers and franchises in a lot of ways. I mean, we all know The Last Guardian is pretty much Eco, Shadow Colossus, Last Guardian. It feels like a saga. I think there's even hints that they're in the Eco and Shadow are in the same world, right? So yeah, they're very similar to me, and I'm rooting for both of them, and I'm so scared for
Last Guardian to be amazing and Final Fantasy 15 to be a dumpster fire because I just want, I don't know, Final Fantasy 15 already seems like something that's going to be very underwhelming for me, and Last Guardian is something that also seems like it's going to be very, very underwhelming, and I would like the more artistic game to be the better game.
Yeah, Last Guardian has the potential to move you. I think that's what I want out of it. Like, if it like gives me a tear jerk moment, then it's done its job. Same with Final Fantasy, though. Some of the biggest feels of all time have come from Final Fantasy games for me.
Those.
I don't care.
Hey, you know, it's well, there's plenty of other people as well too to back that up. You know, I think it really is kind of perspective on those games. Because I mean, yeah, like Shadow of the Colossus, like that was definitely one of my favorite, like, top 5 PS2 games for sure. But you know, like, you know, I don't know. I guess maybe I'm just coming in from a place of
just very
pain,
very jaded.
Just like I don't want to have good feelings about Last Guardian anymore because I don't want to be hurt again.
What about you, Tommy?
Honestly, I would probably prefer Last Guardian to be the game of the year, but at this point, I feel like I could be happy just flipping a coin. Like, my expectations are almost at the same level for either one. I haven't truly enjoyed a Final Fantasy game since 9, so I want to enjoy a Final Fantasy game again. I completely skipped 12 and 13 just based on feedback that people mentioned. Didn't sound like I would really enjoy them. So, but I'm hopeful of 15. Like, that's the thing, is that what I've heard about 15 seems like, even though it might not have the same type of story from 9 that I would enjoy, the gameplay is really there. That would intrigue me. And then Last Guardian, I am just still so interested in it, despite not really knowing a whole lot about it, and just despite all of the ups and downs it has. So at the end of the day, I could really just flip a coin and be happy either way, it feels like. Which isn't really the best endorsement, but at least it's not the worst.
Solid
maybe.
50-50.
I don't know.
Literally.
Yeah, like, it literally is a solid 50-50 for me. Which is also a great movie.
At this point, for me, it's just like I said at the beginning of this that I didn't care that Last of Us got delayed, or not Last of Us, The Last Guardian got delayed. It's just like at this point, it's just The Last Guardian is like the dad who won't show up to your band concert, and he just
The Last Guardian went to get cigarettes.
like he just
He's
consistently
on my level.
just, you know, son, I'll be there this time. You know, like I'll be there. I'll see you play your saxophone.
Oh wow.
Don't worry. And then like and then the day before.
But how many birthdays has Half-Life 3 missed? And all
Played
this other stuff?
saxophone.
Yeah, Half-Life 3 is the girlfriend that you never met. But,
that you never met.
but yeah, it's just like that's where The Last Guardian is for me. You know, like this whole like the last 3 weeks got pushed or whatever. It's just like your dad calling you and just being like, you know what, I'm not going to be able to make it to choir, and you're just like, whatever, I don't even care. Like, you know what, Dad, I don't care. Final Fantasy 15 will be there.
They're not on PC anyway, so whatever.
No, I would love Last Guardian to be good.
Cameron, what about yourself?
I think we all want them to all be good. Oh man, I know I'm the one. I'm so good at asking these questions, not so good at answering them. Boy, I think again I go back to the silly price point, and like Last Guardian, I think at its best it can be an Ori and the Blind Forest to me. Final Fantasy 15 at its best could be potentially a Witcher 3 to me, so I think I got to go with Final Fantasy 15 just for the sheer. I'm right. It has been a long time. Like Final Fantasy 9 and Final Fantasy 5 through 9 are some of my all-time great gaming experiences, and those are so long ago that I really respect Team Eco, and everything that they do, but Final Fantasy is like hallowed gaming ground for me, and it's been a long time. So I think I'm rooting for 15, but I don't know if I'll ever be able to get the idea out of my mind that it's really Final Fantasy versus 13, and they just flipped it. And until I actually see it come out and be amazing, that's gonna haunt me until they prove otherwise.
Yeah. Yep. It's just hard to gauge with these two games. Just so long coming. So, but anyways, yeah, to kind of move on into the last thing I wanted to talk about, or at least with news and such, it comes from kind of a near and dear place for majority of us, but yeah, Chris Metz, how do you say that? Metzen.
Yep.
Chris Metzen retires, which it's interesting because I mean, to be honest myself, like I didn't really know who this guy was, and so I had to look him up, and Kane's shaking his head. I had to look him up, and yeah, it turns out he is a major contributor, or not only contributor but writer for, World of Warcraft, Diablo, StarCraft, Overwatch. I mean, he's touched everything Blizzard's done, and yeah. But the odd thing though is that like I was seeing a lot of very, very sour comments of like, well, good riddance, like after Diablo 3, I'm glad he's gone. Like, I don't know.
That was not his fault, for the record. Let's get that clear.
Okay, yeah. See, that's what I was gonna ask. Is is he seriously like the one to blame when it comes to a lot of like recent like
storytelling stuff?
Yeah, like how active was he on all of these stories? Like within the last, I'd say like the last 3 major releases.
I'm not totally sure exactly how he fits into the Diablo 3 thing, but Chris Metzen is pretty much wrote and at least contributed to most of the stories in Warcraft. He wasn't around for Warcraft 1, but he was there for Warcraft 2. He kind of made it its own. He wrote the whole Gul'dan and Dark Portal. Like, he gave depth to that. Diablo has kind of always been on the sideline with him. Diablo has never been Blizzard's main baby. That was kind of Blizzard North, which was a different dev team. But, yeah, Chris Metzen is kind of the face of Blizzard. He's always kind of the guy up there on BlizzCon talking. He's a really passionate Irish dude. He's really cool. And it's very interesting to me that he's retiring because he's like 40 something, like maybe 50.
Yeah, he started at Blizzard when he was 20, I think.
Right, and that was like after Warcraft 1, I think, was already out.
Yep. So he's only in his like 40s, early 50s at the oldest.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, he definitely left because of, family things. Like, he's got, 2 kids with a third on the way, and so, like, he wants to become full-time dad. And so, I can kind of respect that, I suppose. Especially, like, he's done pretty well for himself there at Blizzard, I'm sure. I'm sure he is set for life, so.
What a cool stay-at-home dad.
Yeah, right? Dad, read me a bedtime story.
Right, no kidding. It is interesting, kind of the negative comments towards him that you mentioned. Just like, I think it's so funny how gamers can get this way with the industry. We kind of talked about people that way with Miyamoto last podcast as well. And it's just like, in so many ways, I guess it's a balance of like how much appreciation and respect you have for what they've done, and then like what have you done for me lately is what makes all these people get so snarky. But with just my personal point of view on anything to do with the lore or stories behind Blizzard games recently, I think they nailed world building with Overwatch recently. They did a great job of that. Hearthstone obviously doesn't really count in this regard. I think they maybe stumbled a bit with StarCraft 2. Don't know if he's involved with that one at all. And Diablo 3, maybe not the best story, but I think what's important is Chris Metzen maybe, I would imagine Mark Rosewater with Magic's similar in this way too, where he like did a lot of his heavy lifting probably early in his career, like when the true world building was happening around World of Warcraft. Like Warcraft 3 has great stories with the Dark Portal and Gul'dan, but when they actually like got in there and started to like design the world, design all the characters, and really flesh out this gigantic world that became Azeroth, like that was probably so much mainly Chris Metzen. And same with the Diablo storyline from Diablo 2, I would imagine. So it's like, sure, it's like complaining about maybe the short story at the end of a George R.R. Martin book. It's like he's done a lot. So maybe a short story here, or even a Stephen King book, he cranks those out. Sometimes when they're not the best at the end, that doesn't mean you throw your hands up in the air and say good riddance. Like, you're still losing a massive person that contributed to these games being great and what they are.
Yeah, to kind of follow up on that, it feels like in recent time he kind of stepped back and became more of an overseer, grand architect type of role, and let other people fill in the details and everything like that, where he just kind of provided a broad stroke over everything, kind of an overlying vision.
Yep.
And in that regard, not to get too political or flame bait or anything like that, but the person that always comes to mind when I think of stuff like this is George Lucas. People love to get on George Lucas for the prequels and everything like that. They're like, he ruined Star Wars. And I'm just thinking to myself, he gave you Star Wars so that you could be mad for the prequel.
Right.
So do you just want him not to create it in the first place? It makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
So sure, maybe you don't like some of what has been done here and there, but overall, I think most people are pretty satisfied with what some of these storytellers have done throughout their careers. And so the main reason why I decided to pick up WoW again after 6 years was because Cameron and Kane were playing it, but also because I actually enjoy that world. It's interesting to me.
Totally.
Yeah, and he definitely has created a lot of really fantastic things over his time with Blizzard. He created Soldier 76, which is like pretty much my main, so I think I have him to thank for that.
He created the generic
Have a little
assault
Chris
rifle
Metzen
guy.
statue.
Pretty much. Well, yeah, that's the thing too, is that when he made Soldier 76, he kind of based it off of himself, I guess, a little bit. So I have Chris Metzen just hanging out, just watching
That's cool.
over me while I play Overwatch.
Getting watched
Not
over
yet.
by Daddy.
It's actually coming.
Yeah, is he overwatching you?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and then pretty much everyone was the number one thing when it came to like a lot of people's comments was like, yeah, like apparently he wrote some bad story arcs or what have you, but he gave a speech like at BlizzCon, like if they needed to tell it the fan base anything, Chris Metzen was your guy. So.
Yep.
But
Like, I haven't seen all the comments. Have the majority of them at least been positive?
no,
that's what I've seen.
Well, like from what I was seeing, like straight away, and I mean, like this is some shitty places, or not shitty places, but like for comments like Kotaku and like Games Radar and stuff like that, people were very snarky, like, oh yeah, that's fine, that's okay, he can leave, it's no problem. Like,
It's a little disappointing.
I wasn't seeing that. I was on Blizzard's site, and I was reading that actually a forum post that he posted on Blizzard's site, and pretty much everything was really positive there. I mean, most people are like, he became like exactly like Cameron was saying. People recognize that he kind of stepped back and wasn't exactly directly contributing to stories like he used to. But the fact that he was the main creative director and wrote pretty much the story for Warcraft 2, 3, and Diablo 2, like, people recognize that, and that's the stuff that people love,
Okay. Yeah, so, well, farewell. He will be missed. And, yeah, I suppose him going off to do family stuff is a pretty admirable way to exit the industry. It's better than most, so.
He also did the voice of Bastion, just in case anyone wanted to know who did the voice of him. It was Bastion is voiced by Chris Metzen.
Neato.
So, there you go.
Okay.
I bet he'll be back.
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah.
I bet he will too.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not exactly with Blizzard, but probably. But I bet he's too young.
I could see, like,
people don't stay away from the industry
well,
very long.
yeah.
It just never happens.
He said initially too that he was exiting the game industry. So there's that.
like not going off. To
I'll believe it when he's dead.
Creators love to create.
Oh,
Dang, how
damn.
that got real super fast.
Yep.
Like, I could see him being a consult or something like that, but honestly, if he wants to retire to be a dad, that's fine with me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, more power to
Our
him.
kids grow up,
Yeah.
turn 18, and move out. Then you get bored.
True.
Want to make games
Also,
again.
his
So
wife works at
in-
Blizzard.
So in 20 years,
Oh,
we'll
nice.
see Chris Metzen again.
Off we go to Grope-a-trope. All All right, so I'll go ahead and
boy.
explain it again. So if for some reason,
Yeah, please do for me too, because I don't know
all
what
right.
it is.
So
either.
for Kane and everyone at home, Grope-a-trope is a segment at the end of the show where we discuss which scenarios we would most like to see play out between three different things. It's kind of like a Mad Libs of sorts. It makes more sense once I actually say it. Anyways, we generate 3 of them a week, and we just kind of debate back and forth on which ones sound the best. So anyways, we're going to go ahead with the first one here. So with this game, it's Grand Theft Auto set in 1960s London, made by
Oh,
John Carmack and John Romero, using the engine and gameplay of The Sims.
Killed it.
This one's gonna be hard to top.
Number 2,
I was really on board there until that last bit.
I'm still on board. That sounds
Yes,
great.
are you kidding me? That sounds amazing.
1960s London Grand Theft Auto Sims. Hell yeah.
I'm just picturing Sims playing Carmageddon.
Sims, though.
All right. So, number 2, Konami hands full control of Contra over to Miyamoto
Please say platinum. Oh.
without hands or eyes.
Wait, they hand it over?
No.
Without hands or
Konami
eyes, or
hands
Miyamoto
over
doesn't
full
have
control
hands
of
or eyes?
Contra over to Miyamoto with no hands or eyes.
Like Miyamoto.
Miyamoto has no hands or eyes.
Oh, but he can program with his feet, probably.
He'll talk it out.
program anymore. He just tells people what to do.
At first, I was like, that's just going to end up like Metroid, but then he doesn't have his hands or his eyes. So
Yeah.
Probably won't.
And the third and final one, Poor
Miyamoto.
Miyamoto. Rockstar passes Red Dead Redemption 2 over to mid-90s Looking Glass Studios using only Gary's mod.
Wow.
Dude, these are all like way more interesting and like things that could happen maybe than last week.
So Looking Glass Studios, you have to
damn.
remind me which one these guys were again.
I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah. I meant to look it up before we got started, but...
I want to say that's
Oh,
is that
God.
Thief?
Oh.
Yeah. The original System Shock and Thief.
Yeah, yep. The
So
PC first-person shooter greats of the 90s.
yeah, or like they made
Or
the
first
first-person
person.
games that
Hey,
weren't
hey.
Doom and Quake.
John Madden
Yeah.
Football 93 for the Genesis.
Bam.
Wait, no, don't skip over Command and Conquer for the N64. Sir, they know.
So
their
could we
stuff.
get a quick
Yeah.
recap on the 3 of them, Josh?
Yeah, we need to have these like so that we can see them because there's
Oh,
a
man,
lot to
I don't
take
know
in
about
here.
you, but I
Okay,
haven't
so
forgotten the first
number
one.
1 was Grand Theft Auto 1960s London, made by John Carmack and John Romero, using the engine and gameplay of The Sims. Number 2, Konami hands full control of Contra over to Miyamoto with no hands or eyes. Number 3, Rockstar passes Red Dead Redemption over to mid-90s Looking Glass Studios, using only Gary's mod.
Oh boy, that's a killer.
I'm going with 1960s
Yeah.
London Sims.
Yeah.
Final answer.
I think that's a pretty. That's a
John
good one.
Carmack and
Don't-
John
It's hard to beat
Romero. Yeah.
It is, but what was the Red Dead
I don't want
Redemption?
harm to come to
Red Dead
Miyamoto.
Redemption was the mid-90s Looking Glass Studios, only using...
Yeah, that was the game for mid-90s.
yeah.
Using Gary's
Only
mod.
using
Yeah,
Gary's
it's
mod.
just like Terra Nova was a mech game that
Which, can
Looking
you
Glass
imagine-
made in the mid-90s. So I'm just imagining like a western with giant.
I'm imagining a
mechanical
Western
robots.
with balloons on everything.
And
I was gonna say, can you imagine taking Gary's mod back and showing it to people developing
Oh,
games in the
man.
90s?
You're like, dude, okay, grab this piece
Yeah.
of metal and then fucking weld it to this tire. Make this tire spin this fast. Boom, helicopter. It's good. You're good to
Oh
go.
my god.
I think my choice is still the first one. Just, Grand Theft Auto, 1960s Grand Theft Auto, Carmack and Romero. They are two names
Making a
that I
sense.
love, associated
Yeah.
with Doom and stuff like that. And it's just
I would
the
listen
whole,
to the behind the scenes on that so hard.
the
His
whole
little voice.
Sims thing. I'm just wondering how. I'm just picturing that in my head, and it just sounds like a fun time just to screw around with. But choice 3, it sounds like you could actually make a working game based off of the movie Wild
Yes.
Wild West.
Oh
Which also intrigues me. You could probably edit in Will Smith and Kevin Kline and have them do a dance number on a giant metal spider.
Dude, and the
riding
best
into the
part
sunset.
too
I
is
don't
that
know.
Gary's mod, you've got hydraulics, you've got pulley systems. The giant fucking
Yeah.
spider's gonna
Just
work.
goofy fucking ragdolls.
It's gonna work
Yeah.
in-game engine.
So either of those two sound
I
I don't know.
I don't think I could
gotta
do
go with
anything.
number one.
Yeah, I don't know if I could do anything even related to The Sims. I have just perma burned out on The Sims, so I'm probably gonna have to go with number 3 because just
But just imagine the right-click options on a prostitute.
Oh man, yeah. Seriously, and
Well,
then just like,
wait a minute.
so I'm imagining like 1960s London. Are we talking about like top-down Grand Theft Auto, or is this?
Yeah.
Well, it's The Sims. It
I
has to be,
Oh,
right?
Well, isometric.
Yeah,
I
I'm
suppose.
picturing
Yeah.
Sims
Oh, man.
isometric. Yeah.
Honestly, my favorite part about about that game would be just like setting the sim AI to just let it do whatever it want and just fast forward. Like imagine a world like Grand Theft Auto and just letting the Sims do whatever they want.
Fast forward
Especially
1
like
hour.
the fast
and
forward, like
your
the
game
3
is
arrows
done.
fast
Seriously,
forward.
one big side note. I can't remember who it is, but there's actually like a car. Guys who create self-driving cars are using. They're giving the AI like access to Grand Theft Auto 5 to learn how to drive cars.
Oh god.
Don't give him Brock's save games.
No.
Yeah, so it's just a big aside. I read it earlier today, but it seems
pretty neat.
stupid.
That's pretty cool though.
It seems pretty neat until Grand Theft Auto's driving AI is so fucked. But
like you
yeah,
get a self-driving taxi and you're like step on it and it's like kill everyone. Okay.
okay, let me take this.
I thought you were gonna say
treacherous
that-
mountain road.
Oh god damn it.
I thought you were gonna say that the people responsible for the driving AI were getting their information from The Sims, and I was like, oh god, help us all.
Either or, but well, yeah, kind of sounds like we went with number one. It doesn't really matter anyways, because it's all fun anyways.
It's all made up
I
and the
guess.
points don't matter.
So,
Yeah.
Nope. I start making these on Game Maker.
Oh,
We'll
are you
decide.
serious?
Number 1.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Take
Oh,
a step
number
right
one.
further down the hole,
God,
Isley.
please.
You got to make them in RPG Maker.
Just we need to get all of these down. We need to record like which ones win, and then at the end of the year we take all of them and we pick a winner of those, and then we pitch it to Inafune for a concept. Be like, this is what you need to make.
Yes.
Because at this point,
Yes.
why not?
Yes.
I think we should have Cody do some quick doodles
Oh, that's
of
not a
each
bad idea at
winning
all.
game concept for that, for like that final bracket, so we can really visualize
Yeah.
the beauty of these
That's
games.
a great idea.
Yeah.
So it kind of sounds like the first quick doodle you've signed up for is the one you don't want, because it all sounds like we're going one for the most part.
Well,
Oh nope, Pokemon, Quake 3
Yeah.
Pokemon, one last
Don't
time.
forget
my God.
Quake
Quake
3
3
Pokemon.
Pokemon.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
Forgot about that.
Quake 3 Pokemon, wasn't it by monkeys or some shit? Was God,
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
only gonna
That's
draw
gonna
the
make it
game
better.
itself. So
We need the back end.
It's got to
We
be
need
like
a little bit of the back
monkey,
end.
like a monkey typing onto a keyboard in like the clouds
Yeah.
to represent the development.
Yeah.
I'll see what I
Alright.
can do. I'm a little rusty.
Cool. Well, anyways, I think that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for our episode 2 of the Trope-a-Dope podcast. I had a pretty great time. I hope you guys did as well, too.
You know what, Josh?
Oh, good.
I did too.
Thank you.
I have an announcement.
I did
I have
too.
an announcement. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it as well.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
That's 2 of the 4 besides myself. That's cool. Good. 50%. Anyways.
I'm gonna stay on.
Alrighty. Well, have a great day, night, morning,
Just go
anything.
enjoy yourself, you dangus.
Just have a great time, okay?
Go smell some flowers. Get a dog. That's great.
It's the Sonic to the Mario.
Wow. You know what? I always enjoyed Sonic better, so fuck you.
You can enjoy it better, but you can't say that it is better.
Shut up, Kane.